Anyway, welcome. This evening is When Tarzan Married Cinderella. We have dreams about life, relationship, identity, and some of us, like me, I didn't have any dream of being married until I got much older. It was like, nah, I don't think I need to get married. I want to travel, I want to adventure. And so, of course, one of my roles is Emma Peel. Was Emma Peel married? No, no, no. Was Emma Peel an adventurous? Oh, yes. So, would Emma Peel want to get married? Probably not right away, at least. Um, Somebody has joined. I love this. Uh, when I can see you join in and your name typed in. Thanks a lot. So, this comes from usually one hero or another that we identify with when we're kids. And it can be a cartoon character, it can be a person in a book or a movie or your neighborhood or a game or something that's just special to you. And then it becomes a kind of an unconscious life script. And this is part of the study guide and the recordings that I've made. And sometimes I call it the fairy tale archetype. Sometimes I call it the childhood hero. Sometimes I call it the gift and the curse of the childhood fairy tale. And I wanted tonight to share with you some stories that include this concept about the unconscious life script that directly affect our marriages and relationships. So imagine a guy, and I did see a couple where he indeed was Tarzan and she indeed was Cinderella. Those were a couple of their role models, dreams for relationships, if you will. So this wasn't just this man, and they were a dear couple. They were wonderful to work with. They were so willing and honest with me. So it was very nice, and they had a great marriage, and I helped them make it better. So just imagine a young boy brought up in a great family, and they do a lot of reading. He is riveted and excited by the Tarzan books, the originals, the classics, the Edgar Rice Burroughs version of Tarzan. And as if you know those books, it's a whole series. And they're quite substantial books. You know, they're not just the kind of Hardy Boys stuff. So it's classic fiction. And he read all of those. He, carefully had them on his bookshelf. And so he, as a young boy, therefore was immersed in the mental images, the dreams, the identification with the life that Tarzan had in the jungle from when he was a little boy until he grew up. And of course, what does this create in a personal life script? Well, creates an identification with nature, with definitely being independent, right? Because Tarzan was, for the most part, alone in his life or in solitude and relating to the apes, the animals, but nobody to talk with, nobody to have conversation or dialogue with, not much language. And, Jane came along somewhere in the book, but she wasn't, we didn't have an intimate relationship and a marriage and all that, and family and a home and 9-to-5 job, or the standard things we think of in Western culture. Although what Tarzan did have was, of course, bravery, independence, a willingness to be adventurous and take on challenges and protect, great character, honor, and integrity. And so what we're looking at is Tarzan had great qualities as a great and good man, a very honorable man, very masculine, very man's man. And he didn't know much about women, if hardly anything at all, at least in the Edgar Rice Burroughs books. And he didn't have much at all about interaction with people, with conversation, dialogue, um, I'm looking for the word, vocabulary, a man of action and not interaction. So there we have Tarzan. Now we have this woman, and when she grew up, she loved the fairy tale stories like Cinderella. And since they were a couple before, Disney movies, her version of Cinderella, and I have to say that I've encountered quite a few Cinderellas from that generation where their very favorite book was the Little Golden Book, that series of books published with the little gold binding on them, and it was a little child's picture book with all the typical things about. And Cinderella, well, first of all, she was kind of an orphan. The wicked stepmothers and stepsisters, and her dad was gone and her mom was dead. And so she was in a difficult environment. And while she was there, she was a cheerful, whistle while you work. She had to do the hard work, but she was cheerful while she did it. Then, so it's all about doing the right thing and being good at home as a housekeeper and such, even under duress, and waiting until her prince came. And, the little part about the animals helping her, and then the fairy godmother appeared to bring her the dress and the pumpkin and the coach, and then she went off to the ball, and the prince found her with the glass slipper, and they all lived happily ever after. So she's very programmed about being in the home, taking care of the home, and taking care of when there are stressful, difficult times. And she just loves pretty dresses, likes the idea of going to the ball and dancing and having that kind of a dream where your prince comes and he's dressed like a prince and he dances with you and it's romantic and connected. So now just imagine a woman who has those kinds of dreams, and this is how it's a part of a self-concept or a part of our identity that we develop when we love those stories or identify with those characters. So it develops kind of dreams or patterning for us, especially if we strongly identify with it personally. And that then carries through a lifetime. And it's either unconsciously running us at certain times for both strengths and difficulties, or undeveloped things, or things that we're just ignorant of. The other thing that these stories do is they help little kids deal with the stressors in their lives. So, for example, if we take Tarzan and this young man's identification with Tarzan, if he happened to live, and I believe he did, live on a farm in a rural area, Tarzan was then a way for him to connect with what he had in the rural area without kind of feeling lost about not being in the city, or not going to a large high school, or not having parents who were involved with social and societal situations. And so that he could connect with an honorable role model that didn't have to develop those societal connections, or working for a corporation, such elements in a life. And then if we think about the woman who was Cinderella, so often a woman identifies with Cinderella because there's something difficult in her life, like Cinderella had wicked stepsisters, or Cinderella had to do the housework and the chores and the cleaning. So if a girl feels orphaned in some way, and it could be any way, it could be maybe that one of her siblings is sick and her mother takes care of that sibling more than her. It could be that there are a lot of chores to do. It's a farm situation, or there's a large family and she has chores and her girlfriends don't have chores. But the Cinderella shows her that you can have chores and you can do them and be cheerful about it. Or maybe her mom died, or maybe her parents are divorced and her dad is not there very often, and yep, she has a stepmother, but she doesn't feel really connected with her. Or she has siblings that are just miserable and grouchy. Whatever it is, the Cinderella story gives her something to hang on to, where she knows that there's hope. She knows that if she can keep doing the hard things, even when it's difficult for her with her tasks or with the relationships she has, and that there is sooner or later light at the end of the tunnel, where she'll grow up or the prince will come and such like. So I wanted to share that thought about those childhood stories, where it gives a child a pattern that says, hang in there, have good hope. No matter how difficult your life is going to be or how narrow your life is, the story is going to unfold and it's going to work out. So I'm thinking about, this is my new software, and Jack has coached me that I'm going to have to take a break so that I have a video track, 4 video tracks for one session. And I'll need to just pop out and then pop back in. So, Jack, if you're listening, would you coach me through the first one, sweetheart? He's upstairs, you know. Anyway, so when Tarzan married Cinderella, we have this couple, and of course they're way more than his role model, who was Tarzan, and her role model, who was Cinderella. And yet, those are parts that are active in their relationship. So he's probably, the husband is probably going to be a man of few words, right? Because he was Tarzan. Tarzan didn't talk all the time. He didn't talk hardly ever. So he'll be a man of action. He will be a man of few words, and you can depend on him until the day is done. The particular couple I'm thinking of, they both had kids, and when they got married, it was a blended family. And they did really, really well at it. As Tarzan, he was willing to take on being dad to her kids, and that's what a strong, honorable man does. He provides and protects. And this guy was great at it. And he was a great dad. But their marriage was suffering. They were taking really good care of their kids. And it was stressful for his job, but then their relationship started to lose their mutual friendship, their romantic time, and they ended up finding me and coming to see me. All right, it says, I'm flashing red, Jack.
Okay, so just tell your audience members that they don't need to do anything.
Don't do anything.
Don't do anything, just wait for 20 seconds and Heather will be back on the air.
20 seconds? Maybe I can do it faster?
Maybe. Ha!
Okay, so I do stop, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm back on the air. Hi, everybody. Thank you for your patience through that. Okay, good. So then, this blended family, the man is Tarzan, the woman is Cinderella, and of course, you know, Cinderella is looking for relationship. She's looking for home. This woman, you know, she loves decorating her home. She loves taking care of her house. She's very connected with her kids. She is uber mom, you know, one of those I call a mama bear. So she's wonderful. She takes really good care of their kids that have now been blended, and they're all getting along pretty well. But they notice that they're losing their sex life. They're losing their connection with each other, and they're starting to be a little snippy, get into arguments. So they come and see me. And so we identify this, the largest source of their problem is that he was patterned for Tarzan and she was patterned for Cinderella. So she was missing time with him, with conversation with him, personal one-on-one time. He had an 8 to 5 job. He also had a kind of like a vacation job in the evenings where he was always busy, always doing things. And his jobs, both of them, the one during the day was very much a managerial engineering job. And the one in the evening, he works with young boys. So he was very much at home in these two worlds. When he came home, he didn't realize that he needed to spend more time at home and more time with his wife, because after all, Tarzan didn't do any of that. Tarzan was just always busy in the jungle doing goodness knows what with the plants and the animals. And so he wasn't aware that his behavior was taking away from their relationship. And anybody that wants to ask me a question or chime in, you're welcome to type your thought or your suggestion or your question, and I'm happy to hear from you. And then, of course, the wife, who was patterned after Cinderella, she wanted him home. She wanted him to be her Prince Charming. She wanted him to, have that romantic feeling where when she got to dress up and go dancing and have him caring for her. The prince searched high and low with a glass slipper to find her and took her home. So the source of the difficulty in this marriage was she really and truly needed him to be more bonded and connected with her and to spend more time with her. And specifically, she wanted him to be her best friend and to have some conversations with her. Not a lot, just some, And he thought that he was doing really well. And sometimes he kind of wished that she would come out and do something, in terms of sports or the outdoors. But she wasn't an outdoors person. She was a home and a culture person. So when we identified Tarzan and Cinderella, immediately much came clear. And then what happens is we want to look at how grateful we are to our spouse for all the strengths that they have because of those ideals, because of those dreams. And then look at how to develop, how to unfold in our maturing process in the relationship so that we develop the other parts that weren't inherent in those role models that created our dreams for our future. Any questions, any thoughts about this? So thank you, Kath. So what you're saying is that communication is actually not the real problem in a difficult relationship. Ooh, well said. Good question. Yes and no. Communication can be the real problem. So in this relationship, of course, one of the problems was communication because the husband, who thought of himself the way a man would think of himself if he knew Tarzan was a really good guy, and he was, is he doesn't spend any time thinking about talking or communicating with her about much of anything. He wants to know what he's supposed to do to be a good husband and a good dad, and he'll go do that. Operative word, do, not discuss, not talk. And so one of the recommendations I had for them was I gave them the structure and the format for a family meeting or a marriage meeting, which then gives him the description, the outline, the instructions of what you do, what you say, how you have a family meeting, and how you talk things through with each other. So yeah, communication was definitely a problem with them. And of course, it's a bigger problem because he's part of this problem is Tarzan doesn't really get it about intimate relationships or an intimate bond. It just wasn't there because he was so independent. So the truth is, Tarzan, the role of Tarzan, which is not a full man because it's a story, of course, but the role of Tarzan is programmed against intimacy, against a bonded relationship because he didn't have one. So it's not that it's, how do I say, not that it's unhealthy, just undeveloped, just really not aware. So yeah, it was a communication problem. It was also a problem in the sense of his concept of what a good guy was. Does that make sense? And then, um, Cinderella wanted to have her home and her family, so she does communicate, and women naturally want more connection in relationship. And the way we get that, usually, most of us, is we want to talk. We want to have a dialogue, we want to have a discussion. And this also goes into that idea that I taught before, where oftentimes two people in a relationship, in an intimate relationship, each one has what they want to say, and it ends up being two monologues. And what we want in communication is to have a dialogue where both people speak and listen. And so that's a give and take in an interaction. And that's the bottom line of skill that we really need for a friendship, best friendship. You want to be able to express yourself so that the other person is interested in what you have to say, interested in knowing, interested in you, and then you're equally interested back so that it's a give and take. So Kathy, or Kath, does that make sense to you? Yes, communication is one of the problems, and there's more than that. Yes, cool. And it depends on the couple. And that's one of the reasons I love being a marriage counselor, because every couple is different. And every couple has a different sort of disruption that they come to share with me and to say, what do we do about this? It's always, my job is always new, always different, always important, and always a certain kind of new puzzle. And communication is often involved in that. But communication is the symptom of what's really underneath. Because this man was very literate. I mean, obviously, a young boy reading Edgar Rice Burroughs. He was a great reader. His vocabulary was huge. He was a great philosopher. He was very articulate, but he just didn't talk. He didn't have that developed in him. He was one of the tall, silent types, And when he realized that that's what his wife needed, then he'd be open to that and spend time on that. And they would go out to dinner, and then they would have conversations. Got a question? Got a comment? That's cool. I like hearing from you guys. Thank you for tuning in tonight about when Tarzan married Cinderella. And then neither one of their dreams came true right away. And, it's, I shared this with somebody just in the last couple of days. Relationships are born and they grow, we get to know each other, and we really don't come up against our woundedness or our undeveloped parts until we've been together for a while. And then after a while, it starts to be revealed in the patterns that develop over time, what works and what isn't working. So let's see, Kath has something else to say. She says, I think I can relate very well to the Cinderella viewpoint. Most women can, actually. I've had a lot of Cinderellas in my practice. I sometimes feel lonely in my marriage because my husband is not a communicator. Yeah, indeed. And there can be many reasons for that. And like Tarzan is one really good reason, one really big reason. Sometimes it's kind of a concept that certain groups of men have, that the tall, silent type or the man of few words is more masculine and a better ideal if you want to play the role of a good man. Um, Sometimes they've, how do I say, been wounded or disrespected or put down or made fun of when they communicated something that was vulnerable, and therefore immediately decided, well, that's not safe, and so are very reserved and careful about what they say because um, it wasn't safe for them. And Kath says, I know I'm not supposed to try to change him, get him to communicate. So is there anything I can do? Yes, of course, dear. Um, you do want to get him to communicate. And of course, coerciveness or complaints or defensiveness or making him feel inadequate are not going to work. Usually, I'll use my couples communication class where I teach the different elements of good communication and show how that communication is paramount for intimacy. And one approach that is pretty common is the person who doesn't communicate has a need that may or may not be met. And so the easiest, most approachable one, of course, is that I'll have a couple come to see me, and one or the other of them says that they're disappointed in their sex life and that they don't have the kind of satisfying sexual relationship that they really need and want and dreamed of. And there's always a reason for that, or a system of reasons. And it's not uncommon that in the beginning of a relationship, when a couple falls in love and it's so intense and passionate, that their sex life is really great. But our sexual bond is when we're most vulnerable, most open, most sensitive to our interaction. And frankly, if a woman doesn't feel bonded to a man, she doesn't soften and open. And in that particular scenario that I'm describing, if he says that he wants to have a better sex life with her, then one of the answers to that is usually when she feels bonded with you, she will soften and open to have a better sex life with you. And it's going to be really hard for her to do that until she feels bonded. And the way a woman usually feels bonded is through conversation. So, helping him understand what you need and then what the benefit to the relationship is when you get what you need, or what the benefit to him is when you get what you need in terms of conversation. Sometimes, there's this very simple concept. I love it. When a woman is happy, a man is happy. When she's smiling and happy with her life, a man, there's almost a visceral sense in him that says, I must be a good husband. Or because she's happy, I think I'm doing a good job. And so one of the things that our men need more than anything is for us to be happy. It shows me for just a second because I had to take my break, start another video track, and so I'm back again. So usually the approach, if you want to communicate better with your partner, especially with your husband, is to show him what benefit or what difference there is in the relationship when you do communicate. And that means knowing his love languages, knowing how to make him comfortable talking, telling him specifically how good it makes you feel or how it benefits you and how it makes you love him more and be grateful more for him when he does have a dialogue with you or talks with you. I know I was working with a couple a while back, and this was one of the challenges that they had. And it was very interesting and clear to me, not that it was an easy task for either one of them, but if you imagine a man who was raised, good family, but he was a boy, one of four boys, and one of four of very active boys who were very active in sports, outdoors, hunting. It was a man's world in their family. So they were all rambunctious. They were guys. They did what guys do together. And there wasn't a lot of girlfriends or girl cousins or neighbors or anything. And they had a good life. And they all grew up to be responsible and caring men. But he was patterned to interact with other guys, not really with women or females. Then he married, he fell in love, and she fell in love with him. They got married. And she, on the other hand, was born into a great family too. But there were three daughters in this family. And the dad was very gentle with the girls, and they did all the things that girls do. You know, they do the Cinderella stuff, the dolls and tea parties and playing house and Barbies and things like that. So when they got married, after it all wore off, she learned to love to go to sports events with him, and he learned to be at home with her and the kids. But over time, the patterns unfolded where he was still off doing the guy things with the guys and not talking to her much. And she felt like he did stay home and did help her around the house and helped her with the kids. But when he went to have fun, it was with his guy friends. Sometimes she went along with the sporting events too, but he really, really didn't understand that she needed him to talk with her. They got along really well when they went on vacation together because, of course, all of his guy friends weren't there. And they were together, which means they communicated more. It was just the two of them. And it took quite a period of time for us to identify these patterns and for us to see that how to communicate with him that he didn't need to quote unquote fix it when she was troubled. She just needed him to listen and then to talk with her. And that was a very difficult task for him, to stop and just talk. Just listen to her and validate her rather than doing a yes but or wanting to fix her when she was sad. Just to listen to her, just to have a dialogue. She didn't even need a long dialogue, just some kind of a dialogue. She was starved for his friendship in that kind of deep communication. So that's an example of how communication is a problem, and yet the communication is the symptom of the problem that caused it in the first place. So yes, Kath, there are things that you can do. It's important for you to know what it is that keeps him from communicating with you the way you would like, the way your dream is. And so, like for example, this one that I'm describing is he grew up around men who did not communicate very much. Now, there are men who are glib and they have a silver tongue and they are marvelous communicators, but that's usually not that common. So you would want to know what keeps him from communicating a lot, and then reach him kindly and lovingly, reach to him where he is. So like, for example, if you were married to this guy who didn't communicate and he loved sports, you would enter his world and start learning about his favorite sports figures and have a dialogue with him in his world. which then will lead into, over time, having a dialogue about mutual things or in your world. And I'm wondering if you can relate to that, Kath, or if you have something specific that you're thinking about that might be underneath why your husband doesn't communicate. Heather, thank you. I am actually excited about trying that. Fantastic. Yep. You know, when it doesn't seem to be a logical step-by-step solution, where I usually go is let's do the loving thing. Let's make friends with the other person, really understand them, and walk generously towards them. And Kath is typing. She says, my husband is, so I'm curious now about what part of her husband is not a good communicator. Or what part her husband so tell us, Kath, you said my husband is so that we get a sense of which part is affecting your communication. She says, rather, I think he is just not realizing, yes, like Tarzan. He didn't realize that a woman needed so much conversation. And to him, even a small bit of conversation with a woman seems like a whole lot. He is just not realizing that I am disappointed. In our verbal intimacy. How would he? Guys usually don't examine that. They're not sensitive to that. And oftentimes when I'm working with a couple, I will remind the woman that she needs to be very concrete, very specific, very clear about what it is that she wants. And he'll say, oh, that's what you want? Oh, okay, I can do that. I'll try doing that. If we don't communicate in a way that they can hear, then they don't even know that there's anything missing because they're quite different from us. Right, how would he? Brilliant, Heather. Well, actually, it's just common sense, isn't it? And the way you want to communicate that is probably not tell him there's anything the matter with him, but set it up where you tell him how much you want to deepen your relationship and connect with him and know more about him, and move into those worlds where you want to know what he thinks. And that, I have one reminder to you, Kath, that when you want to start talking with your husband and having a deeper, intimate conversation, you want to make very sure, number one, he's got a full tummy, right? So he's relaxed and he's not being pressed with something. You want to make sure that you appreciate him so much. You want to set it up so that it's a conversation that's safe. And so usually you don't want to go into talking about something that's really worrisome or bothersome or very, very sensitive. You want to start off with something about your dreams, like in the daily dialogue that I teach, wishes, hopes, and dreams, and being curious about that and sharing about that. The daily dialogue is a little, what's she saying? Kath says, every time I come to your broadcast, I usually leave hitting myself on the forehead while saying to myself, I should have thought of that myself. It says to me, it's this is making sense. It's not rocket science. And the truth is, great relationships aren't. And that I've spent my whole life learning about psychology, relationships, communication, and culture. So I'm naturally sensitized to that. And if you haven't been in my world as a professional, then it's probably not just gonna be on the top of your mind. So thank you so much for your support and encouragement and validation in the sense that this is making perfect sense to you. And my goal is I want it to make perfect sense to you or say, yeah, I understand it now. And now what do I do? Oh, yeah, I know what to do. So those are the two parts. I want you to understand, and I want you to know, oh, I can do this. Um, looks like somebody else is having a comment here. I would love that. I love hearing from you, my dear listeners. Um, so we want to set up our communication with each other so that it's pleasant. Because if it's pleasant, then you kind of want more of it. And next time a conversation comes up, you're not kind of walking on eggshells or kind of worried about what's going to be brought up, but it's kind of like, oh, this is cool. Oh, this is really interesting. Oh, I didn't know that. Um, what was it? We were with a couple just recently. Oh yeah, it was today. And it was very dear. I mean, they've been together for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And he said that he really wasn't keen on air travel. He really wasn't keen on buses or cars. He really always wanted to travel by train. And that when he was a little boy, he wanted a train set so badly, and that he's never had a train set. And she said, I didn't know you never had a train. I didn't know you wanted a train. You never said anything. She said, if you told me that you would want a train, then I could get you one. Well, it's on her list now, right? But he hadn't, and that's one of the things that we get in conversation and dialogues, like, oh, you like trains. Well, that's cool. Then we talked about them taking a trip on the train going through the Canadian Rockies, which is completely divine. Um, cool. I thought I saw another comment. So that even when we've been together for a long time, if we don't have, okay, we don't have full knowledge of each other and everyone, um, in of back and forth in a relationship over time, unless we communicate all the time about everything, which means there's always more to communicate about, always more to learn, always more to share, and always more that's interesting to us that lets us fall in love with each other over and over again, in sometimes little increments. Let's see what we got, the comment we have now. So I have a relationship. It sounds like that this is an inappropriate question. And so it sounds like spam, and I'm not going to read it aloud, and I'm not going to speak to it. It just happens when you're on public, isn't it? And my husband is protecting me. Jack, thank you, darling. Let's see. We are close on the end of our hour. So let me kind of regroup on when Tarzan married Cinderella and how our dreams don't come true in our marriages. So, yeah, there are dreams that don't come true. However, we grow up. And those Tarzan Cinderella dreams are from children and youth with a brave dream about something about who they are and what relationships will be like. And then when we mature, when we move through life and we really know real people and go through dating relationships. And this is the last break, so I'm back to finish the show this evening. Thank you for hanging in there with me. So this is part 4 of Tarzan and Cinderella. So that when we mature through our lives, even though those childhood dreams may not really come true, we get more in touch with who we really are and what we really want, and more in touch with the opposite sex or our intimate partner or relationships. And we look at, okay, maybe we don't communicate very well because over time we've developed these habits, and that means that as adults, like Kath was typing this evening, she's now been in this relationship long enough with her husband where she's seeing that their communication isn't as intimate as she would like. And that's not the end of the relationship. It's not the death knell. It's not a discouragement. It's just that that dream didn't come true, and now she's going to create something that's real. And be kind and caring and interested with her beloved, and open the doorway to that unfolding adventure, which doesn't happen in a day, doesn't happen in a year. It's something that we live through and live in day by day. Today we may have been pretty good, yesterday was not good, tomorrow may be okay, and yet this is something that my husband told me in the beginning of our marriage that I will never forget. And Jack, I'm so grateful to you for saying, you know, dear, there's always tomorrow. And it said 1,000 things to me in certain ways. It says that he would be with me for all my tomorrows, and that there would be many tomorrows, and they're all different, and they're all different kinds of possibilities, and that tomorrow is a new day and we can start over. Tomorrow may be a new slate where maybe we had a hard time today, but there's always tomorrow where we can do better or improve or plan something that's more true to us. And that has stuck with me ever since we were married. And I think it's true of all good marriages, of all great relationships, where there's always tomorrow because we've committed to each other and we respect each other and love each other and are interested in more. Even when it's kind of vulnerable or difficult, we hang in there, move through it, and then are always willing to say, tell me, let me learn, how I apologize, forgive me, or there's a place here where I love you so much and I want more of you here. That we enter that interaction and that dialogue with each other as we mature, as we grow. And in essence, we grow into new dreams because our dreams become mature. They become real, grounded, and then it's even more humbling because it's so real. And this person doesn't have to love you or do these things that they do, and they do. Which is, it's thrilling. It's thrilling to see each other as just ordinary man, woman, human beings doing the kind thing, doing the inventive thing, doing the goofy thing, doing the special thing that makes a new dream that can come true in the true sense of reality. So thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And for tonight, for my first show, where we're going to do 4 video tracks for each show, it'll be easier for you to play them in the future. And for talking about what happened when Tarzan married Cinderella and how their dreams didn't come true, and then how they create real life and new dreams based on what a real man and a real woman really want and really have to give to each other. Thanks for tuning in to the Red Room tonight. I'm Heather Carlisle, and I will see you in the Red Room same time next week. Good night, everyone. You're so welcome, Kath.